Yes, hello once again. Uh, okay, so I have two things to say, or yeah, more or less two things to say. I've heard some people on the panel saying that the people who've been here for a long time or something like that ought to be given amnesty. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that particular idea. I would like to put a scenario or a hypothetical to the panel, right? Imagine that you are a driver and your driver license expires and now you are like maybe 2 months overdue. You should have renewed your driver's license 2 months ago, but you still decided to go out and drive on the roads. Né? And now the traffic officer stops you and says, "Hey, chief, where's your documentation?" You cannot tell the traffic officer that, you know what, I was at Home Affairs and the lines are long and it's so difficult to renew my license, blah 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 blah. No, whatever reason or excuse you might have for trying to get yourself out of that particular situation, the traffic officer is still within his or her own rights to fine or jail you or punish you accordingly. It's that simple. Now, the reason I am talking about this is I hear people all the time talking about how, oh, it's so difficult to get documents to come into South Africa. That's why we come here illegally. No, just because you find it difficult doesn't mean you should proceed to break the law. We South Africans are forced to go to Home Affairs and sort out our issues accordingly, regardless of whether or not Home Affairs is incompetent, regardless of whether or not they are slow. We are still in the lines, waking up at 4 a.m. and we are there by Home Affairs at 5 a.m. to make sure that hopefully today my issues will be sorted. So all these excuses about how, oh, these people are finding it so difficult to get documentation, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't work. Sort it out. That's all I have to say, because the rest of
Okay.
us are forced to also sort it out. Now, there's also an issue with, I had a lot of people talking about the media. And, you know, this is about solutions, as you said. And I wanted to raise a few points. I want to make a few things clear, specifically to South Africans. The government is not your friend. In fact, they are your enemy. The media is definitely not your friend in this whole immigration situation at all. And lastly, something that a lot of people don't seem to notice is the private sector is your biggest enemy in all of this. Because think about it. You are a private business. What's your incentive? To make as much money as you possibly can. How can you do that? Well, you just hire cheap labor. However, that presents a problem because you have two types of people. You have a South African or an immigrant that is here legally. Those people have rights. And then you have an immigrant who is not here legally. The South African knows their rights and they will enforce their rights accordingly. If they are not supposed to be working on weekends, they don't work. If they are not supposed to be working on holidays, they don't work. They demand to be compensated for their labor accordingly. Okay? So, cheap labor is the main objective of the private sector. I need a lot of people to understand this. We have regulations for a reason. South Africa is a capitalist economy. If people don't understand what capitalism means, it means if there weren't any regulations, private companies like Abo MTN and all these other companies, if they could, they would enforce slavery on everyone else. But what's stopping them is regulations. Okay? Now,
Yes.
I am a telecommunications engineer slash technician, whatever you want to call it. Né? And at the moment, I am what you would classify as the youth, right? From 16 up until 24. Right now, as you speak, I'm 24 years old. And I come from the Free State, a town called Botshabelo. I moved to Gauteng about 4 years ago. And fortunately, I was able to get a job straight out of varsity. Né? Now, there was a lady over here, I don't remember her name, but she alluded to the fact that she's from the Eastern Cape. And when she saw all these issues of foreigners
Yeah.
versus South Africans and so forth, she thought to herself, hey, what's going on here? Or, this is bad, blah, blah, blah. Until she moved to the CBD and she started to experience it herself. I have gone through the exact same process. Until very recently, I was jobless. Until very recently. For a whole year, I went to training camps for a whole year. I sent out my CVs and so forth. And see, the thing is, before you can work, by law, it is required, especially in the telecoms industry, it's required that that company you're working for, whether it's MTN or whatever other subcontractor company, they must take you for training. In those training courses, I met so many people who are not of South African origin. So many people. And I suddenly found myself thinking, Heban, how am I competing against so many people for jobs that are supposed to be reserved for South Africans? That's the question. I need to ask this to the people who are talking about amnesty. I need to ask this to the people who are talking about how, understand that they are coming from very difficult economic realities and so forth. You are not supposed to cross the border to sell fruits. I'm sorry. I don't care how hard the situation is in your country. You are not supposed to cross the border only to sell fruits. Because once you think about it, the situation goes like this. Someone who sells fruits contributes very little to the economy. For a person who uses our education system, someone who uses our health system, someone who uses our electricity and so forth, all of those things are high cost. And when we ask you, okay, what exactly is it that you are doing to give back to the economy? You're selling fruits, something that doesn't even pay tax.
Now, so I'm going to ask you your solution to any of some of those problems that you have mentioned.
Yeah, my solution. The number one solution is to vote out the ANC. That's the first solution. And I will be the first person on the front lines to say that, to an extent, South Africans have inflicted this whole pandemic of illegal immigration onto themselves. We have an electorate, a populace of people that keeps in voting their own abusers. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. That's the first thing. The second thing is we must amend our own labor laws. Apparently, there aren't any job quotas in this country. Now, granted, the South African government is taking steps in order to rectify those particular realities, because the last time I checked, there was a bill that's going to be introduced into Parliament to say that there should be a certain quota that must be met of South Africans and foreigners, right? So, unless the people vote out the current government, nothing is going to change. That's the first thing. Nothing is going to change. Now, once we vote in this new government, we have to make sure that they hold the private sector accountable. It's very important. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that private businesses are there to take care of them and create employment in the community. No, these people are only interested in making money. Whether they make money using South Africans or foreigners is irrelevant. The question is, what's the cost of using South Africans versus the cost of using illegal immigrants? That's the question. And unfortunately, illegal immigrants win all the time. All the time. There was a case in the Western Cape, in a place called anyone please correct me if I'm wrong, Robertson, where there were Lesotho nationals, which by the way, I'm Sotho, funny enough, but that's irrelevant because if you are not here legally, you still be deported. I don't really care, right? Lesotho nationals were fighting Zimbabwean nationals for jobs that should be reserved for the locals of Robertson. They went to that particular farm, one of the farms, right? The government went to one of the farms and they interviewed a manager. And that lady spoke very blatantly, as if she's not ashamed. She came out and said, yeah, I prefer to hire foreign nationals because these people don't complain about working overtime. These people don't complain about working on weekends. These people don't complain about, working on public holidays and so forth. And if we pay them, whatever wage we want to pay them, they are happy, they go home, they come back. Some of them even reside on the farm itself so as to be super, super early and never miss a day of work. Now, if anyone doesn't understand what I just said, translation, what you were saying is basic. We want people we can exploit. If we cannot exploit you as the private sector, you, my friend, are not suitable for what we are trying to achieve, which is our profit motive. It's that simple. It's not complicated. Now, I would like to voice another issue, okay? And this is the whole, we are all Africans, no African is illegal on African land, blah, 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 blah. Guys, we have borders. Whether or not it's enforced, those borders were enforced by the white man and so forth. Mind you, I have my issues with the white man. I have my big issues with the white man, right? Because as it stands, a very small portion of the South African economy is actually owned by the locals. However, that being said, these are our borders, regardless of who drew them. I don't care. The point is, we have South Africa as it is right now, and we have to work with what we have. So this whole business of, oh, Pan-Africanism, blah, 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 open borders and so forth, it's not going to work. Because if you have a brain, you'll be smart enough to realize that you can't just open borders, because everyone, and I mean everyone, is going to flock to South Africa. Everyone is going to flock to South Africa. The problem we're seeing right now of the labor market, in my profession, we used to get paid, we used to get compensated accordingly, according to our skills. But now, because there is a very large number of people coming from other countries and saturating the market, that means that the wages go down. By definition, the wages go down, meaning that someone like me, who should have been earning at least like maybe 18, 20,000 a month, I now earn 10. On top of that, there's some guy coming from another country. He comes here and he basically goes, yeah, you know what, boss, this guy, he basically knows he has rights and he demands to be compensated accordingly, according to our constitution. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, no, just give me 6,000 instead of 10,000. How are you supposed to compete with something like that? That's my question. How are you supposed to compete with people who are willingly coming here to be slaves? That's the question. And when I talk about the media, when I talk about the people, because South Africa has two realities. People don't realize this. The middle class in South Africa is almost non-existent now because of COVID. But there are people who have money and they are rich. They live in their own gated communities. It's nice. And then there's people who live kokasi in the townships. The realities that these people live are very, very different. There's a reason why the people in the media call everyone in the township who complains about immigration and so forth, they call them xenophobic. The reason they call them xenophobic is simple. None of these people are coming into your own gated communities and competing for jobs. None of them. However, what happens is that those people come here and they end up in the township. They can't go anywhere else. Where can they go? They end up in the township. Right here where I live, in Cosmo City. Just a few houses away, there's an extension called Extension 6. They steal electricity. A lot of those people are illegal. A lot of them. So for someone like me, am I supposed to welcome a group of people who have come here for the explicit purpose of competing for my own livelihood? That's what I want to know. Am I supposed to accept people who come here to compete for resources with someone like me who is barely managing to make ends meet as it is? Because I'm young. And because I'm young, the job opportunities for South Africans, especially those who are young, are very few. Mainly because we don't have experience for the vast majority of us. We don't have experience. So whatever job we can get on a farm, in the hospitality industry or whatever, that goes a long way. Whether you're talking about starting your credit, improving your credit record or whatever for future purposes, whether we're talking about gaining experience, whatever reason, it goes a long way, which is why I keep saying that a lot of these people are coming here and they're taking the jobs that are supposed to be reserved for especially young South Africans who have no experience and are looking for a place to start in the workforce. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Will. Thank you. Right now, I'm going to give Z Lloyd. And then after Lloyd, we're going to have a Nobizwe. Lloyd, you're welcome.
Hello, Ziki. How are you this week?
I'm fine. Thank you for joining.